There are 26 things you could do today that could change your retirement forever. In fact, 2026 could be the most important year for your retirement. And I don't say that lightly, because in 2027, pensions are being dragged into inheritance tax for defined contribution pots. That's a change that could cost your family, well, up to 67% in tax if you don't plan for it effectively. And 2026, well, that could be a change in strategy year for you. That's just one of 26 time-sensitive actions, nicely goes with 2026, that you should be taking this year. We've got state pension deadlines, tax thresholds that have been frozen, benefits that millions of pensioners aren't claiming, and some genuinely good news if you know where to look. If you don't know me, my name's George Agan. I'm a chartered financial planner. I'm a fellow of the Personal Finance Society. I've helped thousands of people retire without worry, and more importantly, without nasty surprises. So the next 10 to 15 minutes, I'm going to give you the complete 2026 retirement checklist, 26 specific actions with actual deadlines, actual numbers, and what to do about each one. Quick heads up, you might want to jot some of these down as we go. So to make life easier, I've actually included a downloadable checklist of this 26 in the description. Same 26 points with all the dates and numbers, but you can then just tick them off as you work through the plan. In doing this, you'll also be added to my email list, where you'll have access to all the resources I've created through the channel through the years, whether that be our retirement masterclasses, inheritance tax planning calculator and masterclass, or the defined benefit calculation cumulative value calculator, which a lot of people liked. So if you want to join the email list and you haven't, now's a great time to do it. It's linked below if you'd like to join. Right, let's get into it. And I'm going to fire through these because there's a lot. So we're going to start with the big one. Understanding the April 2027 pension inheritance tax change. This is the elephant in the room. And if you only do one thing from this entire video, if you're affected, make it this. So if you don't know, from April 2027, unused defined contribution, that's flexible pots, will be included in the estate for inheritance tax purposes. Right now, pensions sit outside of your estate, which means that they can be passed to your kids or your grandkids, essentially tax-free in a lot of scenarios depending on when you die. This is changing. The government themselves estimate this will put an extra 10,500 estates into the inheritance tax threshold band, into the inheritance tax net, with an average additional bill of 34,000. So what you're going to need to do is, number 2, calculate your estate including your pension. Now, for some families, this could have a really big impact. And I'll tell you about a conversation I had with a client recently. They came to me convinced that they had no inheritance tax issue. Their house was worth around 650,000. They had about 150,000 ISAs and savings, and they felt, understandably, they're well underneath the threshold for them, their partner, of £1 million, because that had the nil rate band and the £175,000 per person residential nil rate band. Now, when we looked at the pension, they also had 380,000 in defined contribution pots. When we added that in, the estate now went above £1 million. Now, that's not necessarily a problem if it's going to be spent down, but they had quite sizable defined benefit schemes, and that estate was planning to grow over time. So we need to now change tact entirely. So the first thing you can do is add up everything you've got: property, saving, investment, and yes, your pension. Get an idea of the number. You might be surprised. So number 3, following on from this, is understanding the potential double taxation trap. And this is where it can get very painful. If you die with a flexible pension after over 75, after 2027, your beneficiaries could potentially face 40% inheritance tax on the pension if that applies to you, and marginal rate when they withdraw it. And what that means is, for a high rate taxpayer, that's 40 plus 40, which means the effective rate for a high rate beneficiary of 64%. If it's additional rate, it jumps up all the way to 67%. Now that is way higher than anyone I speak to feels is palatable. So we definitely need to be thinking about the strategy now going forward for the spending if you are going to be affected by that. I do have to be clear, the government is still consulting on the detail here, and while we've had a lot of the explanation, the Finance Act hasn't been published yet. There could be some changes, like there has recently, to agricultural relief or around farmers taxation, but I think this is probably going to stick, and we should certainly be planning for it. I don't think it's going to change because it kind of sits in that bucket of quite complex, not a lot of people understand it, but could raise quite a bit of tax revenue. The next thing to do is review your nominations for your pension beneficiaries. Here's something that could save you significantly. From 2027, the spouse exemption still applies. So if you are married, pensions passing to a surviving spouse or civil partner don't face inheritance tax. Now, why this matters so much is if you've currently got kids named as the beneficiaries, it could be worth reconsidering after 2027. Now, while pensions are outside of the estate, it can actually be worth keeping them as the beneficiaries just in case you kick the bucket earlier, as long as your spouse is going to be okay should they get disinherited, so to speak. But from 2027, that spousal exemption is going to be really important from planning, because what you could do is then leave benefits to a spouse or civil partner, and they can then consider drawing withdrawing it tax efficiently or as much as possible at that point. I would certainly recommend checking. Don't just assume it's sorted. I've seen cases where someone thought they'd done the beneficiaries, but the scheme had no record of it. And what I'm telling all my clients is that we set a reminder in 2027, and I'll be speaking to them about the reviews all in the next year, and we'll potentially be collecting updated expressions of wish. So number 5, following on from this, is to consider potentially accelerating pension withdrawals. And this is a big mind shift for a lot of people. For years, the financial advice with the pensions being outside the estate has been preserve your pension for as long as possible. It's really tax efficient because it's outside your estate. Spend everything else first. The maths of this has now changed. Drawing pension income, you could argue, removes funds from your estate. Yes, you'll pay marginal rate, but if your marginal rate is say 20%, that could be a lot better than the 64% example I gave you. And I think this has completely changed the maths of retirement income if you are someone who cares about inheritance tax. Number 6 is using gifts from income, if available, for immediate inheritance tax exemptions. And this is quite a powerful strategy that not everyone knows about. If you make regular gifts from your surplus income, so this is not capital, this is income, then this can potentially be immediately exempt from inheritance tax with no 7-year rule. So that's where you have to give something and live 7 years for it to be outside the estate. The key is it has to be regular, it has to be from income, and it can't affect your standard of living. These are all intentionally vague terms, so you need to make sure that your beneficiaries can prove all this to HMRC if you want to successfully claim on this exemption. Pension income is classified as income, so you could potentially maybe pass on some surplus to your kids if it's the right thing for you to do, and as far as a window, it could potentially be immediately outside of your estate. You would have to document this thoroughly, understand the rules, and keep good records of every gift. Remember, you won't be able to argue this. HMRC will need to see the pattern on your death, so communication between the family is key. And number 7 is understanding the personal allowance freezes. So the personal allowance, that's the amount you can earn tax-free, has been frozen at $12,570 till April 2021. It was supposed to be unfrozen from 2028. That has now been extended to 2031. That is a decade of fiscal drag. And here's what that means in practice. An estimated 5.2 million additional people will be pulled into paying high rates of income tax by that point. Many of those who are pensioners who weren't taxpayers before or high rate taxpayers before. So it's certainly worth trying to think about your strategy. Now, this is a hot topic which we are thinking there's going to be some change, but it's worth reviewing whether your state pension alone will trigger income tax or is due to. The full new state pension from April 2026 is £12,547.60. The personal allowance is £12,500.70. That gap is just £22.40. In theory, just one more year of triple lock increases and pensioners with nothing but the state pension could become taxpayers. Now, the Chancellor came out on the Money Saving Expert show and said, regardless of the increases, people who have only a state pension won't pay this, but we are yet to see what that is going to mean. What it does give everyone the opportunity to do is review their income position and see if they can do anything to manage this. And so that's why number 9 is plan pension withdrawals, especially around the 50,270 high rate tax threshold. So any income above the 50,270 is going to get taxed at 40% instead of 20%. And because of that freezing, that's going to get closer and closer for quite a lot of people. So if you're in a position, maybe through flexible pensions, where you can withdraw, you can choose when you withdraw from your pension, this is crucial. Taking a big lump sum could now push you earlier into the 40% band. So try and think about if you can spread this more carefully or across your 20% bands. Number 10 is, if possible, use your capital gains tax allowance, which is £3,000. Remember when this was £12,300? Well, those days are long gone. So capital gains tax allowance is the annual exempt allowance on any gains you have, any capital gains. So this is typically things like buy-to-let sales or maybe investments outside of ISAs. If you've got investments in ISAs and pensions, then they don't count. But any outside, it's key to think about crystallizing these gains, maybe even each year using what's called BED and ISA. This is a strategy where you sell part of your investment, realize that gain, ideally within the £3,000 exemption, and then buy them back with inside of the ISA wrapper, shielding them from gains in the future. Number 11 is be aware of dividend tax increases from 2026. So dividend tax rates are going up. From April 2026, the basic rate increases from 8.75 to 10.75. The upper rate goes from 33.75 to 35.75. So if you can control the timing of dividend payments through a company of your own, then there may be value in bringing dividend payments forward before that change in April. Number 12 is the dividend allowance is still just £500. So if you're not using your £500 £500 dividend tax-free allowance. Again, another reason to think about this. Next section, we're going to go into the state pension and national insurance. So number 13 is the full new state pension rises to £241.30 per week from April 2026. That's a 4.8% increase under the triple lock. If you haven't claimed your state pension yet, you can apply up to 4 months before reaching state pension age, and you do need to apply. If you're considering deferring your state pension, maybe watch this video where I put my thoughts on why most people shouldn't defer your pension. The next is fill your national insurance gaps if they apply. So this one might not be applied for everyone, but it could be really crucial for some. Under the 6-year rule, that means that you can fill any gaps in the last 6 years. 5th of April 2026 could be your last chance to buy voluntary class 3 contributions from 2019-2020 tax year. So why might you do this? Well, it costs £823.30 per year purchased, and each qualifying year you pay adds approximately £342 annually to your state pension, which is also triple locked. If you do the maths, the break even's within like 3 years, and after that is pure profit for the rest of your life. I say this with caveats though, because you really need to understand your national insurance record. There is no point paying voluntary contributions to fill a gap if that gap was going to get filled by working anyway. So you don't just fill it because you have gaps. You look at when you're planning to retire, how many years you're going to work for, and think, okay, am I going to have these gaps? And then is it worth filling them? So number 15 is to check your national insurance record now. You can go to gov.uk and use the check your state pension service. It'll show you how many qualifying years you have and any gaps in your record. Under the new state pension system, you need 35 qualifying years for the full new state pension. So number 16 is the state pension age begins to increase to 67 from May 2026. So if you were born from the 6th of April 1960 and the 5th of March 1961, your state pension age is somewhere between 66 and 67. The increase starts on the 6th of May 2026 and is completed by March 2028. You can check the exact date when you become eligible by the below link. So key not to get caught out here. And in line with that as well, number 17 is minimum pension age increases are going from 55 to 57 on the 6th of April 2028. So this might really affect the planning that you need to do in this tax year. If you are currently 55 or 56 and you want early access to your pension at 55, you effectively need to start taking your benefits before the 6th of April 2028. Once the new rules kick in, you'll need to wait until 57 unless you have a protected retirement age. This is a really long one to explain and it doesn't affect everyone. So what I've done is I've put some links in the description to the excellent video also by James Shack who covered this topic. But if you are somebody who thinks, damn, I was planning on taking my pension at that age, you need to understand these rules fully, because 55 is going to 57. And actually for all of us, it can be worth checking if we have what's called a protected pension age through our scheme. So if you were a member of a pension scheme on the 3rd of November 2021 with what was called an unqualified right to benefits before 57, you can retain access to 55. But there's a crucial thing. This protection applies per pension, not per person. So you could have different schemes, some with protection, something to think about if you want to access it at 55. Okay, let's go on to ISAs and savings. Number 19 is, if you can, maximize 20,000 ISA allowance in 2026-2027. With dividend taxes on the rise, capital gains allowance from what it used to be, savings income facing higher rates, an ISA wrapper is becoming more and more valuable. So 20,000 per year, which covers what most people are going to ever be able to save, is completely tax-free from gains or tax on income going forward. It's use it or lose it each tax year. So if you do happen to have any spare cash in accounts, it can be really worth thinking about, can I put this in a cash ISA? Because number 20 is there is a cash ISA warning for under 65s. From April 2027, if you're under 65, the maximum you're going to be able to put into a cash ISA, not a stocks and shares, a cash ISA, is going to drop till 12,000. Those aged over 65 can keep the full 20,000 cash ISA, and the logic behind this is that retired people apparently need more in cash savings. But if you're approaching 65 and like cash ISAs, it's good news they protected it. But for everyone else, if you need cash for other reasons, maybe you're moving home, maybe you just got some personal reasons why you need more cash, think about if there's any way you can maximize your ISA allowance between you and your spouse before those rules come in. Number 21 is an unusual one, but I thought I'd mention it. You could consider locking in fixed rate savings now. So the Bank of England base rate is predicted to fall. Current savings rates are pricing this in, and actually what you will often find is instant access may maybe slightly higher than the fixed term rate. Premium bond prize rates are around 3.6%, but the prize rates do not necessarily reflect what you're going to get. I think this is one around the edges, but if you are someone who knows that cash is going to be locked away for a bit and inaccessible, if rates are due to fall, we would expect that you're going to get more benefit from locking in than you would by following the rate down. Premium bonds themselves, because they are tax-free, could be increasingly more important for higher rate or additional rate taxpayers, especially because additional rate taxpayers do not receive a personal savings allowance. So every pound of taxable interest, however small, for additional rate taxpayers is taxable. Okay, the next is on benefits and support. And sadly, there is a large amount of money being left on the table by millions of people. So I understand why this might not impact many of my viewers. It could be a lifesaver for a friend or family member. So number 22 is claim pension credit if you're eligible. So the pension credit is basically additional support you get if you're on particularly low income and your state pension doesn't meet certain requirements. But the reason why pension credit is so powerful is it's a bit of a gateway benefit, as it's called. Once you receive pension credit, you can unlock free TV license worth £159, a warm home discount, cold weather payments, even potentially a council tax reduction and free NHS treatment. There are an estimated 880,000 eligible pensioners that aren't claiming, and it could make a huge impact on someone's life. So if you know someone who may not be up to date with their finances, who is in a bit of a tough spot financially in retirement, definitely worth mentioning pension credit to them. And in similar fashion, the winter fuel payment deadline is the 31st of March 2026. So there's been a lot of policy changes around this, but winter fuel payment eligibility now depends on income thresholds rather than the universal entitlement. If you have taxable income of over £35,000 per year, the payment you receive will be recovered through the tax system for winter fuel allowance. If you're eligible but haven't been paid for 2025-26, you need to claim this by the 31st of March 2026. I put a link in the description because it's quite a long one. It can be quite complex. Number 24 is apply for council tax support. As I mentioned, those on pension credit can receive up to 100% reduction, and there is also a single person discount of 25%, which applies regardless of your income if you live alone. Number 25 is a warm home discount, and you need to confirm eligibility by the 27th of February 2026. There's a £150 electricity bill discount scheme, and it's been significantly expanded. So if you receive pension credit, you should get it automatically. But if you're contacted asking to confirm eligibility, you need to respond by the 27th of Feb 2026, or you lose that entitlement for that year. So number 26 is to, of course, with all this, build or update your financial plan. I've just given you, including this one, 25 specific actions, but here's the truth. None of these are going to work properly in isolation. Should you accelerate pension drawdowns? Well, depends on your estate. Should you fill national insurance gaps? Well, depends on your qualifying years. Should you claim pension credit? Well, depends on your income. I think whatever happens, it's good to have a plan that brings us all together. Something that lets you see how these decisions affect the other ones. The key beauty of a financial plan is it brings the future into the present so that you can do something about it now. It's no good thinking about these kind of things after the event. So I've just put a key date summary on the screen now that just kind of summarizes all the big things that I've mentioned there. And as I mentioned, you can also get the checklist as a download in the description. Now, I talked quite a bit around the pension inheritance tax changes. So if you're not sure on the detail on the rules, feel free to watch this video. It's a really good overview where I go over step by step the changes, who's going to be affected, and what you can do today to make sure that you're planning effectively. Either way, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.